afternoon, everyone. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Any member of the public present who has any concerns about this should raise them now. This is my first Cabinet meeting as leader, and the first Cabinet meeting held in person and online for some 15 months. I want to begin by welcoming the public who are listening today, or for the few of you that may be lucky enough to be in the room because of the limitations of social distancing. I also want to welcome members of the Cabinet who are meeting together in public for the first time, and also the leaders of the opposition, both in the room and online. Whilst there may be some issues on which we will not all agree, we share much common ground and a commitment to the same goals, promoting a healthy population in Shropshire in its many different guises and a healthy economy for our county. Two of the items on today's agenda, the creation of another new local nature reserve and our bids for levelling up funding across the county, speak directly to those goals. I'm also delighted to see that we continue to receive a range of questions from the public at our meetings. We want the public to be involved and understand our decision making, and the ability to put questions to us in a public forum such as this is key. I have said publicly that I want my leadership to be very much about listening to those who we serve and have a stake in all that we do, whether this is our residents, our businesses, our communities and our partners. I'm also clear on the need for us as a Cabinet and a Council to focus more on getting the basics right, because these are the things that matter most to people. Like everyone here, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that I'm pleased to see the fall in coronaviruses continue. And I hope that we can continue our journey through the easing of lockdown, although I understand that there are some tough decisions to be made, probably in the coming week. With these freedoms comes responsibilities, and a few outbreaks in the county in recent weeks have shown we must all continue to play our part in ensuring that we do all we can to hold on to these newly won freedoms. The start of June sees two significant celebrations of the work by two groups who play an absolutely vital role in building that healthy population. Last week was Volunteers Week, and I want to pay tribute to the many thousands of people across Shropshire who volunteer and give up their time for their communities. The pandemic has proven more starkly than ever the importance and connection that volunteering can provide. It forms the backbone of many of our communities here in Shropshire. The work of volunteers over the pandemic has been phenomenal, and the vaccine rollout would not be the success it is without the support of volunteers. Today marks the start of Carers Week, and similarly, we must never underestimate the work that so many thousands of people in the county do every day, looking after family and friends, and without whom the pressures on health and social care would be much greater than they already are. We are so lucky to have so many dedicated people who give up their time for their community or to care. I cannot thank this army of volunteers and carers enough. We will continue to work with you and to support you and help further nurture this fantastic spirit that we have here in Shropshire, which will be more important than ever, I'm sure, as we emerge from the pandemic. So, moving on to the agenda. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence.
No apologies.
We have no apologies for absence. Any disclosable pecuniary interests? No, that's fine. So moving on to the minutes, pages 1 to 4 in your agenda. I am happy to propose those minutes as correct. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Councillor Charnley, thank you. Seconded. Item number 4, public question time.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I don't think there's any members of the public in attendance today, so I'm going to read out the questions. On occasions it'll be a bit of a double act, but I'm going to read out the questions and then the relevant portfolio holder will answer. And the full questions and answers will be available on the website at the end of the day. So the first question is from Helen Morgan. She says, the news that the council will commence surveys as a first step to implementing 20-mile-an-hour zones outside our schools was welcome this week. However, it was reported in the Shropshire Star that the Cabinet member for Physical Infrastructure, Highways and Built Housing said investigations could reveal that current conditions could suggest that a 20-mile-an-hour speed restriction is unnecessary or inappropriate and would deliver minimal benefits. Can the Cabinet confirm whether it is still committed to implementing 20-mile-an-hour zones outside all of Shropshire schools as approved by Council in December 2019? If not, can the Cabinet indicate likely conditions that would make 20-mile-an-hour inappropriate in their view? Furthermore, can the Cabinet confirm the expected timeline to implement 20-mile-an-hour zones outside primary schools? In the Meres, 3 primary schools of Middle, Cockshott and Welshampton all sit on very busy roads and are in urgent need of further speed restrictions.
Thank you. And the answer coming from Councillor Steve Chalmley.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Helen. I can confirm that the project is progressing in accordance with the previously approved report. Currently, we are actively collecting and arranging to collect data from all 150 schools, noting that there are 120 sites and some are on multiple sites, multiple schools on the same site rather. The data collected considers speed, volume, weight, direction, time of vehicle usage, plus any local monitoring or analysis that may be required. Further, all school leaders and local members will be briefed on the progress and detail of this project. Then we will analyse this data and consider the appropriate intervention. As you would expect, this will be in consultation with school leaders and local members in order to produce a programme of works and interventions to reduce speed, recognising the local context and the circumstances, which is equally important consideration. A capital budget is identified and committed to this project from April 2022 onwards to fund the work. Until all the data is captured and analysed and the programme of work developed, it is expected to be considered by scrutiny in the autumn and then reiterating the guiding principles of introducing speed reductions outside of all of our schools. Only at the point of a confirmed programme informed by the technical considerations, metrics and local discussions would we be confident in confirming the interventions at which schools, and at this point it could be well in the case some schools may not be supported by this particular programme. The project will last at least for the next 3 financial years, and I can confirm that the project is achieving its programme as laid out in the approved Cabinet report, even allowing for COVID, school closures, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chalmley. Second question.
Second question is from a David Walker. At Cabinet on the 11th of March, I asked a question regarding media output, saying SIL and Section 106 money would be used to fund the North West Relief Road. The response from Cabinet was as follows. In light of the detail needed and the short time available to respond, a written response will be provided after the meeting. Given that I still haven't had a response to my question some 4 months later, despite querying the lack of a reply, I believe that sufficient time has now passed to provide an answer. So I will repeat my question with some amendment for the passage of time. As a civil engineering surveyor working on the design, construction and maintenance of roads for over 30 years, I find it incredible that Shropshire Council is pressing on with the North West Relief Road when the available data shows it isn't needed, fails to recognise the climate emergency, and the desired relief of traffic can be achieved for far less cost or financial risk by fixing the pinch points on the existing bypass.
Thank you. This is part of the double act, so I'm not sure if I'm Morecambe and you're Wise or maybe Random Deck, I don't know. The outline business case submitted to Department for Transport set out the case for the road based on traffic modelling, future growth, active travel and public transport considerations, plus the wider environmental impacts of the forecast traffic growth left unaddressed. Following detailed options and assessments on alternatives to the North West Relief Road, the business case was reviewed and accepted by the Department for Transport and the funding award made. Full details of the outline business case and the options assessment are available on our website.
Next part of the question that goes on for some time. In recent media output, there has been comment from Cabinet members about the use of SIL and Section 106 money to contribute to the building of the North West Relief Road. Council have published their infrastructure statement dated December 2020, some 10 months after year end. Many authorities have been quick at reporting their annual infrastructure statement. Indeed, Shropshire Council used the published SIL figures much earlier in the year, sometimes as early as May.
And the answer to that part is going to be, the infrastructure funding statement is required to be issued by the end of December for the previous financial year. That is exactly what the council has done.
Question goes on to say, tweets published yesterday, i.e. 27th of May, by Shropshire Council state the cost of building the North West Relief Road is estimated to be 87.1 million. The DFT will invest 54.4. Other funding resources include LEP funding of 4.2 million and 8.7 million, which was for the former Oxford Link Road. We will provide the balance of the cost of 19.8 million. We will provide the balance of the cost and accept responsibility for any cost increases. These figures have been quoted numerous times, yet the media is full of stories about how difficult procurement of materials and labour is currently, with costs increasing by as much as 50%. Clearly, under current conditions, the risk of overrun costs increasing significantly is much higher. Why has no business case for the road been published? If Shropshire residents are to bear the overrun cost, this should have all been evaluated before planning was even considered. Will you publish the full business case for the North West Relief Road?
Okay, so further to the outlined business case publication in the previous question, Shropshire Council will be submitting a full business case to the Department of Transport based on the resolved scheme design. The final business case will be considered for approval by council members before submission, noting that forecast costs at the time. The full business case is programmed for completion by December this year. The full business case will include further updates to the expected build costs based on the detailed design, using market testing, current supply chain information to inform the outturn costs and updates to the traffic forecasting and benefits model. Upon Department for Transport acceptance of the full business case, the North West Relief Road will move to its construction phase.
Next part of the question. What are the total balances for the SIL categories at the end of 2020-21 financial year?
These are not currently available, but we'll be publishing them in due course.
How much of the SIL categories / Section 106 money has been allocated to the North West Relief Road?
North West Relief Road has one existing allocation of strategic SIL money of 300,000 to contribute to Churncote roundabout improvements. There is no other planned uses of strategic SIL for the road.
Does that allocation have any implications for items listed in the infrastructure statement, Regulation 123 list, given that they are both out of date and don't mention the North West Relief Road?
No.
Does Shropshire Council intend to move money from the SIL local to the SIL strategic pot to facilitate funding the North West Relief Road? If so, how much?
Referring back to my previous answer, the North West Relief Road has one existing allocation, strategic SIL of 300,000, which contributes to Churncote roundabout improvements. There are no other planned uses of SIL money on the North West Relief Road.
Will there be any unallocated funds left after contributing to the road? If so, how much?
There's no other SIL funding has been allocated to this project.
Quoting the Council's website, the SIL Regulation 123 list is annually signed off by Cabinet, following the process set out in the core strategy and its accompanying developer contribution supplementary planning document and code of practice. Why then is the last published list so out of date, a list that makes no mention of the North West Relief Road?
Because the SIL Regulation 123 list was replaced by the infrastructure funding statement.
Final part of the question. Speaking as a parish councillor, parish councils should be setting their budgets knowing exactly what their SIL neighbourhood funds are so that they can properly plan their own activities. This leads to excessive sums being held in balances and lengthy delays in project planning. Wouldn't a more timely approach to reporting be more beneficial to everybody?
The neighbourhood fund element of SIL receipts collated each year is distributed to parish councils annually as a single payment at the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Charnley. I think Mr Walker gets the award for managing to squeeze the most questions into one question. The next question, please, Tim.
The next question is from Adam Ship. He asks, the previous council leader had proposed selling council assets to pay for the North West Relief Road. However, there were two different versions of the amount of land and the expected price per acre. Could you please answer the following questions? Exactly which land is to be sold?
And the answer is provided by Councillor Dean Carroll.
Thank you. The Sustainable Urban Extension West development contains two landowners, of which Shropshire Council has the largest landholding, comprising approximately 55% of total development land, which it intends to sell, subject to achieving market value.
What is the actual expected price per acre and who estimated it?
The Council commissioned chartered surveyors Gerald Eve in 2019 to undertake evaluation, but the Council cannot at this stage share the expected price estimate, as this would compromise our ability to negotiate the best value for the public purse and is commercially sensitive information.
What proportion of the council's land holding are you currently expecting to sell?
100% of the land within the Sustainable Urban Extension West development.
And finally, how much land does the council own and what is the maximum proportion it will sell to fund the North West Relief Road?
The council owns approximately 21 hectares of land within the Sustainable Urban Extension West development, and in response to my previous question, I confirmed that we will be looking to dispose of 100% of that land.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. And I think the final question.
From a Harry Taylor. He asks, the Environment Agency has objected to the planning application and we have determined that that is in connection with the North West Relief Road. On the grounds of potential impact on Severn Trent Water's Shelton Public Water Supply borehole and Hencote Pool, SSSI. Given that the previous portfolio lead for highways said any planning application would not be successful if there were outstanding environmental concerns of this nature, will the council now withdraw the application? Similarly, you have received an objection from Barrett David Wilson Homes, who are the developers of the Shrewsbury West Sustainable Urban Extension. You have previously claimed that the development is dependent on the North West Road application being approved. So does their objection mean that the council will now withdraw the application?
And the answer to that, Councillor Steve Charnley again.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Harry, for the question. Any major project of this type will receive objections as part of the public consultation to the planning application. Some of these objections may be known and submitted as holding objection, while the council continue to work to mitigate the issues of concern, and others may be objections that the council had not yet been aware of, and gives the council the opportunity to mitigate the issues that had not previously been considered. Work will therefore continue to mitigate as any of the concerns raised within the consultation, and as such the council do not intend to remove the planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Charnley. That concludes item number 4. Moving on to item number 5, members' question time. And I believe we've got members online who are about to ask us questions. So, Councillor Rob Wilson.
Hello. Is the new administration still committed to the Prime Minister's gear change policy on walking and cycling, including the application of Local Transport Note 120 and the aim stated by Grant Shapps that 50% of journeys in towns, as well as cities, should be walked or cycled by 2030?
Thank you, Rob. And the answer is Councillor Steve Charnley.
Yes, thanks, Rob. The council remains committed to this and recently appointed a dedicated active travel manager to ensure that this approach is embedded in everything we do. A local cycling and walking implementation plan is now being developed, and this will form a fundamental part of our upcoming local transport plan. And both of these documents will be brought forward for adoption by the council in the coming year.
Thank you, Rob. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, if I may. Can I ask why, since LTA 120 was supported by the council, it's since submitted 3 major planning applications which don't apply the policy and rely on shared use paths providing no projecting at junctions? such as the Mile End Walking and Cycling Bridge, the Oz Street Innovation Park, and the Northwest Relief Road. And when can residents expect to see plans that do comply brought forwards?
In answer to that, as you know, I've been in post 10 days, so I'll have to take that away and come back to you, Rob. I haven't got the details to hand on that.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And Councillor David Vasmer.
Thank you. Belvedere School has announced that from September it will be withdrawing from pupils the option of studying for music and art GCSE. This represents a significant loss of educational opportunity for many pupils and a significant loss for Shrewsbury if potential musicians and artists do not receive the support that will enable them to contribute to the artistic life of our town. Could the council make its views known to the head teacher and governors and reassure members that where it has influence over schools, it will encourage the provision of support for pupils interested in music and art?
Thank you, Councillor Vasmer. The answer will be provided by Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight.
Hello. Hi, David. Narrowing of the curriculum can mean that children miss out on opportunities to study subjects and gain knowledge that could be valuable in later stages of education beyond GCSE or in their adult lives. Furthermore, it can have a disproportionately negative effect on disadvantaged pupils. Although academies are free to develop their own curriculum under Ofsted's education inspection framework, the judgment on the quality of education provided by a school starts from the basis that schools should offer a broad, rich curriculum which includes the variety of subjects and disciplines available to study at GCSE. Shropshire Council works to ensure that all children and young people in Shropshire are educated and cared for to the highest standard, which includes academies. As it has been half term, we have not been able to make contact with Belvedere School. However, Belvedere School ensures the breadth of opportunity for students at Key Stage 4 and whether the multi-academy trust within which they operate can offer collaborative arrangements will be explored further by the attached school improvement advisor and as part of the annual monitoring visit to the school, which is scheduled for the next half term.
Thank you, Kirsty. Councillor Vasmer, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say that I have been in touch with the head teachers following the submission of my question. And I think one of the issues is to do with, there's not the support for music and art that one would like. Could the council perhaps try to work with arts organisations and music organisations within the town to encourage students to take up these subjects? And maybe there could be, it's a useful role for the council in allowing collaborative work between schools and the arts organisations.
Kirsty, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just that your comments have been noted, David. Just a bigger conversation, but yeah, I've noted what you said. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boddington.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, if I can follow the previous protocol of asking my question in parts and waiting for a response. So beginning with recycling. One of the pledges of the returning administration was to replace open-top tubs with wheelie bins for dry recyclables. The council leader has a pledge to increase recycling rates. So my first part of the question is, what is the most up-to-date statistic on recycling in the unitary area? Could this response be split between dry recyclables, glass, plastic, metals, paper and card, and green composting?
Thank you, Councillor Boddington. Councillor Ian Nellins will do the Anton deck with you on this one.
Thanks, Councillor Boddington. The latest audited figures for 2019-2020 rate was 54.6%. The estimated split of all resources, including household curb collection, household recycling centres and bulk collections, is composting 29%, paper and card 6.5%, and others, which includes paper, glass and plastics, at 19.1%.
Councillor Boddington.
Thank you. Similar rural hours to ours, such as South Oxfordshire and the Vale of White Horse, recycle 63 to 64% of their waste. Shropshire's recycling rate stagnated at around 57% in the 3 years 2017-18 to 2019-20. What plans does the council have to boost recycling rates to match the level achieved by the best performing councils in England?
Councillor Nellens.
We will always try to improve our performance. The comparison with the best performing councils should be put in context of our relative standing with other councils in England. Where Shropshire currently ranked 43 out of 341 local authorities, so that's in the top 13%. In the short term, the provision of bins for recycling will give residents greater capacity to divert recyclable waste from the residual bin and also reduce the amount lost due to wind blowing and littering. Future plans will be largely driven by our changes to the National Resources and Waste Strategy proposed as part of the Environmental Bill currently moving through the parliamentary process. The bill contains plans for deposit return scheme, extended producer responsibility for packaging waste, and a new set of requirements for household and business waste collection. All three elements will have a significant impact on the household waste management, changing the weight and nature of waste collected from the curbside, how it is funded, and a new set of minimum requirements for waste collection services. The bill will become law within the next 12 months, and once the requirements are clear, we will look at the obligations and opportunities it presents in conjunction with the contractor, Veolia.
Councillor Boddington.
Thank you for that. In December 2017, I asked about introducing wheelie bins for dry recyclables. Part of the response was, and I'll shorten it, the introduction of wheelie bins for recycling would cost around 60,000 per year, which could not be justified at the time. What is the current estimated cost of introducing wheelie bins and the recurrent costs in emptying them?
Councillor Nellens.
I think that was 600,000 per year. The exact cost has not been reviewed for the last few years. I'm currently working with the contractor Veolia to identify the cost and any saving that may be available through introducing wheelie bins. Maybe a proposal which will be brought forward to Cabinet later this year.
Councillor Boddington.
Thank you for that. A common complaint is that the blue bags for paper and card are wearing out. They're prone to letting in rainwater. If a recycling collection has a particularly wet load, I understand that the paper and card can be consigned to landfill. What plans does the council have to review and upgrade the blue bag system?
Yeah, the contractor Veolia is currently in discussions with the supplier to evaluate and alternative designs for a blue bag.
Thank you, Councillor Nellens. Do you have any supplementaries, Councillor Boddington, or are you okay?
Not on that, thank you. I mean, that's answered my questions, and clearly there are more questions to come in the future, but we need a few more details for those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boddington, your next question, please. 2 bites of the cherry.
In some ways it relates to that, Chair, that in many ways that there are some questions that could be answered in writing if they're done in a timely fashion. That I'm suggesting here in this question, which I'll read out, that perhaps we have a system of written questions. The new council leader has pledged to improve communication. The ability to question elected representatives and to challenge the administration of the day is central to the democratic functioning of local government. The current arrangements, which have changed incrementally over the last few years, don't serve us well. For example, there's an informal limit on the number of questions at any meeting, governed by a need to keep the meeting to time. This does not always reflect the importance of the questions and the urgency of the answers required. So my specific questions, I'll read all three because they're linked together. What plans does the Cabinet have to ensure that an appropriate committee reviews the current system of members and public questions with a view to the Cabinet giving future advice to Council on any changes? Could any review consider the possibility of written questions and answers to complement oral questions and answers? If there is to be a review, what is the indicative timetable? Thank you.
Thanks to you, Councillor Boddington, as looking after the comms function. That's a question for me. I'm really keen to improve communication at the council. I've said that many times in the last few weeks, and I want to add that formal questions are just one aspect of being able to challenge the administration, if you like. But in terms of doing that, I've also asked that the scrutiny function be looked at so that its effectiveness is also strengthened. Turning to your specific questions, I've already decided that the system of member and public questions should be reviewed. I think today has shown us that it can be quite difficult sometimes to understand the questions. So I've asked the Chief Executive to ensure that this happens, and a report to be taken to the Constitution Working Group, Councillor Boddington, which is made up of the group leaders, who will in turn come up with proposals. The suggestion to include the option of written answers and questions to complement these other questions is certainly one possibility I would like to see considered, but actually I want the review to look at the whole situation. I don't particularly want to circumscribe the process, as I would prefer it to be done properly, but I would hope that some initial proposals would be available for us early July. Is that okay?
I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Boddington. That brings to a close item number 5. Number 6, we move on to scrutiny items, but I don't believe there are any scrutiny items today. That's nice and quick then. Moving on to item number 7, the Marl Local Nature Reserve designation. I ask Councillor Cecilia Motley to propose the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is actually a good news story. You'll see from the papers before you that the Marl allotment is an area of green space in Wixall, and it lies adjacent to Wixall Moss. So it actually is there to provide a safe stepping stone to the meres and mosses. And it's been owned by Wixall Parish Council and used for quiet recreation. And they have asked that Shropshire Council should take delegated powers to enable this to become a local nature reserve. I have to say that it's quite evident from the report that the local people and the local community have really taken this to their hearts, and they've really worked very hard on the Marl allotment. And therefore, I'm very pleased to recommend that the council delegates power to Wixall Parish Council to enable the designation of the Marl allotment as a local nature reserve.
Thank you very, very much, Councillor Motley. Do I have a seconder for that?
Happy to be a second leader.
Thank you, Councillor Rob Gittins. All those in favour? That's what I like to see. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item number 8, UK Levelling Up Fund. Councillor Edward Potter.
Thank you very much, Chair. Following the announcement of the UK Levelling Up Fund, or LUF, in March 2021, officers have been liaising with MPs to understand priorities in their constituencies and put forward 3 proposals, one for each of the full constituencies represented within the Shropshire Council area. A joint submission could be submitted with Telford and Wrekin, where the council boundaries overlap with MPs. You'll see on the paper before you that there has been quite a tight timeline in which to prepare these bids and bring them forward. Details of the first round of funding and the prospectus were announced on the 3rd of March this year, and they focus on 3 themes: small transport projects that make a genuine difference to local areas, town centre and high street regeneration, and support for maintaining and expanding the UK's world-leading portfolio of cultural and heritage assets. Within Shropshire, we have identified the three bids. In the south, the Craven Isles project, a major infrastructure project to include a new online roundabout on the A49, road bridge over the railway line, and spine roads and utility provision on key employment sites. This has got a great deal of support locally, and is something which will greatly benefit the town, and particular with its it provides the infrastructure to unlock the allotted development within the local plan for housing and employment growth. In the north, in Alter Street, there's a package of proposals to focus on 2 locations: town centre investment to support the regeneration and recovery of the town centre, and improvements to support the planned housing and employment developments around Mile End through improved walkways, cycling connectivity, site preparation and development of a skate park. And finally, in the central area, area, part of the Shrewsbury Big Town plan package of projects to consider making movement better, public realm improvements, widening pavements, traffic calming within the town loop, etc. Also, the town centre accelerating the Smithfield Riverside improvements, demolition of and site preparation to support the Smithfield Riverside Strategic Development Framework. I very much hope that Cabinet will be able to support putting forward these 3 bids. A great deal of work has gone into this and a lot of time from officers and also my predecessors in the relevant portfolios to ensure that we have bids going forward that we think meet the criteria and we stand a reasonable chance of being successful in securing investment into our communities. Recommendations are at 2 on the Cabinet papers before you, that Cabinet support and approve the submission of the 3 bids for Shrewsbury, Oster Street and Craven Arms in the first round of the Levelling Up programme. And second is that delegation to the Executive Director of Place in conjunction with the Executive Director of Resources in consultation with the portfolio holder for asset regeneration and economy to submit the final bids ready for the 18th of June deadline.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Do I have a seconder for that?
Yeah, happy to second, Leader. If I could just make a couple of comments while I am. Fully support this application and the paper within it. You having had the portfolio previously, I know how much work has gone into similar submissions, which was previously the High Street Fund, which turned out to be unsuccessful, but hopefully the foundations which were laid by that paper will bear fruit now. Certainly on the Oswestry side of it, the application builds on the work of Future Oswestry, some of that High Street work and the public realm, and making those connections between employment sites and residential sites is very much needed, and some extra funding to oil the machinery that makes that work would be very much appreciated. So I hope it's going to be successful, and we shall wait and see with bated breath.
Thank you, Steve. I have Councillor Roger Evans first, then Councillor Motley.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to concentrate on one section of this, and that is for the central area, and this is the Smithfield regeneration, Riverside regeneration. I am concerned that in the papers it says that there is no background papers available, no appendices, no additional information at all about what this included. Cabinet is now going to make a decision to submit a bid for it in 14 days' time or even less. The bus station, I and many others, and has been proved in the recent elections, are totally opposed to the scrapping of the bus station where it is. Now, this is part of the Smithfield regeneration project. Where does this fit in with this? It isn't referred to in this paper at all. So is Cabinet now going ahead with the whole project, which shows that the bus station is going to be scrapped and moved to a much smaller site, which is totally inappropriate for what we want, and I think Shropshire residents want for the future communications and transport network for Shropshire. So where are we with this? Will more details be published, and if so, when? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Motley.
Thank you. I just actually wanted to welcome really very strongly the submission on behalf of Craven Arms, because Craven Arms has been working incredibly hard on this project for a long time, and I have to say, regrettably, has up until now felt somewhat out in the cold and somewhat ignored. I know that the local members, Councillor David Evans and Councillor Hilary Luff, will be absolutely delighted that this is now going forward. It's strongly supported by the MP Philip Dunn as well. And actually, this could be a great thing for Craven Arms, which is one of those areas which genuinely has potential to open itself up, not just to more housing development, but particularly to more employment development. There's been a lot of work going on with Network Rail with regards to finding a solution to the level crossing, which has prevented a lot of expansion potential going forward on the business Business Park in Craven Arms. We believe that there is a solution to this. It will actually, as it says here, be a major infrastructure project, but it could completely transform Craven Arms. So it's great to see this, and I'm delighted to support it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Motley. Councillor Potter, did you want to come back to Councillor Evans' points?
Yes, just to, I hear what Councillor Evans is saying, but I think one of the key things around that's formulated these bids is the fact that these bids are ready and meet the strict criteria laid down by central government for the applications. Around the town centre in Shrewsbury and the Riverside development, a lot of this work is being put forward based on the consultations and evidence gathering through the Big Town Plan, and I know in the coming days and weeks before the application is submitted, a significant amount of work in conjunction with the Big Town Plan is planned and will be undertaken to ensure that the best bid is put forward for the residents of Shropshire, Shrewsbury and the other areas in Craven Arms and Oswestry. Ultimately, this is providing an uplift to our communities that is clearly visible and can demonstrate benefits to residents within those communities.
Thank you. I'll let you come back, Roger.
Very critical, and thank you, Chairman. Where and when will members be able to contribute to this before it goes forward? Because there's little information in this paper, there's little information in background papers, there is nothing there. So how and where will local members and members in Shropshire and even maybe Shrewsbury Town Council involved in this? Because the whole of that reorganisation is radical and depends upon the engine, if you want to, for Shropshire. Shrewsbury may be the engine and the rest of Shropshire benefits from what happens in Shrewsbury. So there does need to be a full and wholesome, open discussion on what is going to be put forward.
As I said previously, I think in the central area, we have briefed local members, particularly around the Shrewsbury Big Town Plan, the opportunity to attend the events that they put on. This is a bid for the Shrewsbury Big Town package of projects, and of course that involves the Shrewsbury Town Council. It involves Councillor Alan Mosley as leader of the Town Council. So I think in terms of engagement, we are limited on a quick turnaround and time scale with this. But because it's linked with the Big Town Plan, which has had a extensive consultation period recently, this is something I think is positive for our communities.
Chairman, can I just come back very quickly on that? One more, and that is the Big Town Plan. Shrewsbury residents were consulted. I live adjacent to Shrewsbury. My parish council, my residents were never consulted. They were not even invited to any of the meetings. So Shrewsbury Town and what is happening outside it, Shrewsbury Town is not an island. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. So we have a proposer and we have a seconder. Oh, sorry, is that? I do apologise because I'm struggling to see who's got their hands raised. And Julian, I do apologise to you because I think you wanted to speak to the item before. Councillor Alan Mosley?
No, I wanted to speak to this item, Chair.
Brilliant. Okay, Councillor Julian Dean first then.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that it's tricky managing these sorts of meetings. Just a couple of points on the bids, but then I wanted to just talk about the process. So yes, I welcome the bids, although I'm not holding my breath given the political nature of the Levelling Up Fund. I hope that the Oswestry bid will mean that the cycle route of the Mile End will now be LTN 120. I understand that has been an issue and it really needs to be done correctly. On the Shrewsbury bid, I agree with Councillor Evans that we really need to make sure that whatever goes forward does keep a bus station. But I would also point out to about 2.14, it says making movement better, Shrewsbury Town Centre's key routes and corridor improvements, but then it talks about the town loop. Well, those key routes and corridor improvements obviously go beyond the town loop, and I think we're missing a trick if we're just going to put more money into bits of infrastructure in the town centre, which has had quite a lot of attention, if we're not going to deal with the rest of the town. And then just briefly on the Craven Arms bid, I'm sure it is welcome locally. I'm just concerned that Balfour Beatty is the main consultant on this. Surely we should be having somebody a bit more independent than that advising on this, and I'm concerned that they may have an interest in the result. But my main concern is to do with the process. So there's a nice lengthy financial implications report which tells us about financial implications. But really, if we're going to be making climate action a part of these reports, we're going to have to do better than the version in this one, where under 6.2, I'm just having to scroll down to it. 5.2, I beg your pardon, we're told the bids submitted under the theme of clean and inclusive growth work towards reducing carbon impacts and mitigating increased carbon outputs, blah, blah, blah. It's greenwash. It doesn't, there's no balancing of risks and opportunities. There's, it just doesn't tell us anything about the potential impact of any of these schemes, other than saying they're good. That isn't really an appraisal. And I think if we're going to start making climate change appraisals on these reports, the standard of them is going to have to be a lot better than this if we're not going to be accused of greenwash. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Mosley.
I think we all know that this scheme was rushed out by the government and is part of the attempt to bribe, to cajole the Red Wall into maintaining their blueness in due course. We are not in the first category. We're in the second category. Officers have done a great deal of work. Some of these plans are already in place relating to the Big Town Plan. If I personally thought that this meant that there was any implications for this, where the bus station was going to be sited, or if we're going to knock down the car park and the bus station are part of this, then I would be opposing it. It is restricted, as I understand it, to the Riverside Shopping Centre and the general principles of the overall scheme. The Town Council are against any movement in the bus station and away from the present site or a site adjacent to it, and we will oppose anything that is proposed relating to that, to any change in that. But I can't see why this cannot go ahead so far as Shrewsbury is concerned, and there is strong support for it from the Town Council members and officers. Roger Edmonds has spoken against the Big Town Plan quite erroneously in terms of what he understands about it, which is not a lot, it seems. And I believe that we ought to get on with this. The plans are there. The support has been there in much of the consultation. I would say, though, that and Julian Dean is quite right, there needs to be more consideration given to the extent that it will improve movement in and around the town, and that is around the town, not just in and out. And it needs to be a radical look at the way in which we're planning for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley. We have a proposer and we have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. Vote is carried. And now on to item number 9, which is Performance Monitoring Report Quarter 4. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to actually table this report to you today. This is the last report from Quarter 4 from the year 2020-21. It is quite an historic report. A lot of the information is only gleaned when the data is provided to us. What I actually want to spend the time this afternoon, explaining is where I feel that we're going to be going moving forward. In the short term, we will be actually, in the short term, we will actually be understanding the impact of the pandemic and the data that will come through from that. And what we also need to do is to understand the good working that we have experienced in the pandemic with the COVID working groups, with several partners, and that has really proved that when we can get up-to-date data and we can get it quickly, we can respond quicker and we can actually move things forward. And so that is the theme for how I feel the performance report should be going through in the future. I would urge all members and the public to look at our performance portal. I'd be very straight on to the front page of our members portal. We will shortly be refreshing the corporate plan, which looks at how this council delivers internally. We have the community and rural strategy already in place of how we deliver to our communities externally, but we also have other strategies such as the culture and leisure strategy. So in the future, I would like to see that we have all these policy documents that we can pull them all together and then in a digital way through the performance portal actually deliver for the council and the people of Shropshire as a whole. Now, to actually go through that process, I want it to be very open and transparent, and therefore I would be very keen for performance management scrutiny to work with me to actually develop that moving forward. And I put that offer out to every member of this council leader. If they've got certain areas that sit in those strategies that they want us to look at, bring me those ideas. And to that end, Chair, I move the recommendations 1 and 2. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm assuming this report will be going to the performance scrutiny in the not too distant future. But if I pick up 2 or 3 things from it, and I don't know the answers to it, but I looked at the increasing number of homes in rural communities with access to high-speed broadband. According to the figures, in May 2020, it was 67,989. In March 21, it had reduced to 67,794, 200 homes less. So in those 12 months, rural broadband had reduced. And I'm not sure why that is, whether it's different areas being looked at, I'm not sure. But also, if one looks at highways, and there are 6 criteria there, and I know it only goes to December 19 on some of them. Out of the 6 criteria, Shropshire has 5 of the criteria which have reduced and are lower than the national average. I asked a question recently about the £40 million, which was highlighted recently in many pieces of paper which went round, about the extra spend that will be on highways, when that would occur, and I was told then it's at least 18 months away because of the work that will be needed to actually take that forward. If we are suffering now, we need that money to be spent now, as is highlighted in this. There may be more information coming forward when the December 20 figures are announced, but it does disappoint me. And if on a different note, I do share many of the councillors' concerns about the number of children in social care and the increases there. It is a pity. We are there. It is pressure on the council, but we do need to look at something like that to actually try and assist those children and families who need help, especially during this COVID crisis that is still with us.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Butler, did you want to come back on any of that?
Yes, sure. Roger, I'll get back to you on the rural broadband issues. We've definitely got the message regarding highways. We're on the case. We'll bring it forward as soon as we possibly can. And I have total agreement with you with the children's situation. It must take pure priority.
Can I comment on that? We just had an update today from officers. A massive proportion of this is the courts have been so slow in dealing with the exit of our children, so there's nearly 40 cases that are going to be now dealt with, which will massively impact on that figure.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, Glenn?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll comment on the chat, just make sure I'm doing my job right. Okay, we've got a proposal and a seconder for that report. All those in favour? Thank you very much, everybody. And that concludes today's meeting of the Cabinet. Thank you very much for attending.